We're back at it with combat cycle guides for DC Dark Legion, and today we're covering Murder Machine Phase 2. I've covered Murder Machine in previous guide videos, as well as guides that I've published that are available on DC Dark Legion's official Discord server, as well as my Discord server. You can find the links in the description below this video. I do need to put together an updated guide infographic for the boss, but we're going to cover the similar strategies to what you would do for phase 1 kind of apply to phase 2. You're just probably wanting to mitigate a little bit more damage in this phase. We're going to cover the usual items for these guide videos. So we'll talk a little bit about Murder Machine's kit and kind of like what allows you to do the damage you're able to do against the boss and what to look out for. We'll talk about some of the champions that I think are the best fits for going after this boss, and then we'll actually put that into practice and we'll go through a few of my best rosters for the fight. So we'll jump straight in and talk about Murder Machine's kit. Now, as I mentioned a second ago, the kit or the fight is going to center around you doing as much AoE damage as possible, and you're going to be taking a lot of AoE damage yourself, as I've discussed in some of the other Phase 2 videos. So the Phase 2 power-up that Murder Machine and the Robot Alfreds are going to get is they're going to get higher attack, they're going to get more physical defense, more spiritual defense, and they're also going to get a bonus to effect res, so they're going to be able to resist debuffs and other things that you're able to do to enemies otherwise. So the fight is going to happen in stages or phases. Murder Machine is going to kind of cycle between this electron shield and self-repair mode. The Loyal Servant ability, he's going to activate all of the Alfred protocols on the battlefield. He's going to gain electron shield, and then he'll knock all of you, like he'll knock your team backwards. When Electron Shield expires, Murder Machine is going to enter self-repair. It will remove all Trojan virus from your team, and then it will stun all the Alpha protocols. When self-repair ends, Murder Machine regains the Electron Shield and reactivates the Alpha protocol. So it will just cycle back and forth like that. And, you know, in between these, you're going to see significant damage against your team. There's sort of one of those like Z AoEs that goes across the battlefield, and I'll point that out in some of the fights. Now, the Electron Shield is very significant. Murder Machine is going to get a shield equal to 1,000% of his attack. And then when he enters self-repair mode, he'll become incapacitated, so he can't do anything to you, and it increases damage taken by 100% for 5 seconds. So as soon as he enters self-repair mode, you want to have some of your AoEs available to be able to do as much damage as possible to him. So the next part of the kit for Murder Machine is called Weakness Analysis, and this is a skill that allows Murder Machine to inflict Trojan virus on all enemies, so all of your team members. And what Trojan virus does is it's going to increase damage taken by 20%, and it stacks up to 5 times. So if you get those 5 stacks of Trojan virus, your team's going to take 100% more damage. And this becomes quite significant over time. Towards the end of the battle, it's kind of hard to sustain and stay alive unless you have good healing. And, you know, certain champions, at least in my experience, like Flash, who were incredibly useful for this boss fight, end up dying before the match ends. And the last ability for Murder Machine is called Laser Net. So when the Electron Shield is active, Murder Machine is going to cast this particular skill, and he'll charge briefly before unleashing those 2 AoE laser sweeps that I mentioned earlier, and those will deal physical damage equal to 180% of his attack. Now, taken on its own, it's not that significant, but again, when you have those Trojan viruses on your team, it is going to be a significant amount more damage that's going to be dealt, and it will be hard to deal with towards the end of the fight. So in Phase 2, as opposed to the rewards that you typically get for Phase 1, you're going to be getting slightly different rewards. So you're going to be getting chips and mirror cells for each reward milestone that you're able to obtain with this battle. Now they have the rewards used to be much worse, so they're kind of slowly, gradually increasing the amount of rewards that you can get in phase 2. And the nice thing is that unlike phase 1, the rewards do reset each time that you do the battle each week. So you kind of start back at the beginning and work your way up. This is the way it used to work in the past. You'd be able to get a whole lot more rewards when we just had the one phase. But I'm pretty happy with the way they've done this. I just wish we'd get more rewards for it. But again, you're going to be getting mirror cells for these battles. You can see I'm able to get to phase 4. There are, I guess, reward level 4. There are only 5 reward levels. But nice way to get an additional 300 mirror cells each time you do one of these battles. Now, my best damage today, or my best match today, was using Superman family with Flash. We're going to be looking at that team comp. I probably won't be able to do the 247 again. We'll give it a shot. But I will also show you my Justice League Dark team in action, and maybe we'll look at like a free-to-play option or something else that we can cobble together with what I have available. Taking a look at our champions, I mentioned that AoE damage is incredibly helpful for the fight. And so right now we're kind of, I feel like, in an AoE damage meta, really. Like, some of the best champions in the game are AoE damage dealers. And you look at my roster, kind of the top end of it. Obviously, Supergirl is one of the best champions in the game at doing AoE damage, maybe the best, especially when she's invested well. And I have gone very heavy into Superman family for my roster. So Supergirl is definitely going to be the top champion recommended for this fight. I think also you're going to see a lot of people using Constantine. We've got a few people on server 204 who have 5 red star Constantine, and they get a lot of mileage out of him, especially on the Murder Machine fight. A few other champions, and I'll just kind of scroll through my roster and we'll talk about them as they show up, that I think are important. And obviously it goes without saying that, your healer for whatever team you choose is going to be really important here as well, and making sure that you have well-timed heals every time you take a ton of damage. You'll want to make sure that your healer is ready to go. This is a fight that I like to run on manual instead of auto. I run most of my combat cycle on manual now, depending on the team. Some teams you can just throw it on auto and just kind of see what happens, but healers are going to be very important. Nightwing, I would say, is a champion that you'll see a lot. You'll get a lot of mileage out of on this fight for sure, just because of the way his ult works, and he can kind of like jump to a couple of different enemies, but he just does a ton of damage if he crits anyway. So Nightwing, definitely another champion that's going to do really well here for you. I think your Legion of Doom champs are probably going to do a decent amount of damage. If you are a whale, you probably have Legion of Doom well developed already. So it goes without saying, if you're running them in Meta Brawl, you're probably running them against this boss. Sinestro is going to do really well. He has a pseudo AoE for his ult, because he's going to do damage to the single target enemy and then also a couple of additional enemies. You got champions like Black Adam that are going to be incredibly useful for free-to-play players. I think Red Hood, it fits that description as well. I know there are a lot of people who love the Joker, and talked about him before. I dropped him down to A+ on my monthly tier ranking. But I mentioned the reason why he's such a good champion is because of combat cycle, and he's definitely a champion that you'll want to give a go against Murder Machine. Captain Cold's one of those champions that I've been recommending, especially for free-to-play players, against a lot of the combat cycle bosses. He doesn't really work as well here because on auto he may not be targeting where you want him to target, but he's more of like a single target support champion. Cyborg, on the other hand, is really good against this boss. Definitely worth using depending on your roster and your needs. I don't use him with many of the teams that I have available, but definitely a champion that you can throw in there and get some good use out of. Of course, I mentioned the Legion of Doom champions. I do think Deathstroke can do wonders for you here if you have him heavily invested. Lex Luthor is going to be really, really good because he's got an AoE capability with his ult. Robin. So if you're heavily invested in the Bat family and you have Nightwing, you're most likely going to be running your Robin here. We'll take a look at the leaderboards before I jump into some of my battles and see if anybody is using Robin. I think they probably are. And of course, we've got a couple of new champions with Talia and Raish. I don't know that Raish is going to get used much for this boss fight, but I do think that Talia might prove useful here. We'll see. I haven't really built her, as you can see, and I'm not going to. Let me know in the comments if you've used Talia to great effect against this champion, and I'll be talking to some whales about this as well. You know, this is something that I'll probably be making some revisits to these combat cycle guides as we get new more new champions into the game through the rest of this year. That's going to do it for the roster review in terms of like what champions are going to be helpful for you here. We'll go back over to combat cycle and take a look at the rankings. So I was going to check Chloe because she does use Bat family a lot. She has removed her Robin in favor of just trying to like supercharge her Nightwing, which is incredibly well invested. I don't know that she's maxed his unique legacy yet, but she's getting pretty close to it there. You see that we've got, obviously, Oron here has one of our fully invested Constantines. His roster almost always does really well against this fight. We've got several folks here who are using their Superman families against the fight. You can also see that we've got some lower invested but still really well built Constantines going here. A lot of Superman family. Here's someone who Stryker, she is also heavily invested in Bat family, and she's got her Robin here. Robin's looking pretty good with 2 yellow stars, and she's using Captain Cold and doing 94 million damage. So not that I want to take back my comment about Captain Cold not doing well here, but you can clearly see that he is usable against this boss. I wonder what she would get here if she swapped in her Cyborg, but I'll have to talk to her about that. All right, so let's do a couple of fights. And the first one that we will do, we're going to save Superman family for last. The first one will just be a basic Justice League Dark lineup. So let's use that. Make sure everybody is where they need to be. And I'm going to remove Zatanna here in favor of putting Flash in. So we're going to have pretty decent tankiness up front to keep everyone alive. We got Fate, who's going to be granting shields, and Raven, who will be able to heal for us. I'm just going to throw in Flash because I think we'll be able to ramp and do much more damage with our Constantine using that. Flash is a champion that I continue to move up the rankings because he's just so good at supercharging your best players. We're going to throw it on 2x, and I will be controlling everything manually here. Usually want to kind of keep everybody topped up pretty well. So he's got his shield, just did some AoE. The way I used to control Flash was I would kind of wait until the meter of the highest damage dealing champion on the team got all the way ready to use before I used my Flash. But now I just kind of use Flash on cooldown because I've noticed that whenever you transfer over the ult energy, it kind of swaps. So basically, like, Flash is going to end up, like, if I were to do it halfway through, then Flash's ult would basically be halfway ready once it hit. So you can test it out here. You should see Flash get some energy. He should have around half. See, there you go. So it kind of flops around, and we'll be able to go ahead and hit that again as soon as it comes available. Always good when both of those meters get full at the same time, because then you're able to do 2 ults in a row. And you can see we're not doing too bad with our Justice League Dark lineup here. There we go. We lost our Flash. Hopefully, Raven is going to get us topped back up again. I have done better damage against this boss with my Justice League Dark. If you try hard enough, with my current investment with a 3 purple star Constantine, I can get close to 100 million if I push it. But there's the Justice League Dark team. We'll take a look at the stats. Obviously, your Constantine is going to be putting in almost all of the work there. Just for posterity's sake, I'm not going to, I'll fast forward through the fight or just kind of skip to the end, but we'll run another one, and I'm just going to throw it on auto, but we'll run another fight with Zatanna thrown in just to get that extra spiritual amp for Constantine. And then I'm just going to throw it on full auto, and we'll come back and I'll show you the damage output for that team whenever it's all said and done. Okay, so you can see that throwing in a fairly low investment Zatanna, by the way, over Flash was able to yield about the same results. We did a little bit more damage here, and taking a look at the meters, obviously still doing significantly or most of the damage with our Constantine. Zatanna does put in a little bit of work there for us. We ended up losing Zatanna towards the end of the fight, and then we ended up losing Raven. You're going to lose some of your champions, some of these runs. I always recommend that you do 4 or 5 runs with whatever your best team is, because there is going to be a little bit of variance, and that variance could very well be the difference between you getting second and first, or 99th and 100th. So definitely want to be giving this a little bit of effort and trying to get the highest score that you possibly can if you care about the game mode. The next thing that we're going to do is maybe a free to play lineup. So I have a fairly low investment Joker, and this is probably the only good thing about that, is that I can kind of showcase for you what a lower investment Joker is able to do against this boss. But I think this is definitely a reasonable free-to-play showcase for you. If you have a free-to-play account and you've been playing since global launch, you're probably either close to or you've already obtained your mythic Wonder Woman, and she does really well tanking, and maybe you're not going to have her immediately at the yellow star level, but you'll have that 5 purple stars and she'll be able to do some work. I'm also including Dr. Fate here because those shields are really helpful to kind of protect you against the AoEs that you're going to be facing. And then obviously we have Black Adam and Mira in for healing. So let's go ahead and get this one started. And we can leave this one on auto as well. I will sort of control these. Some of the champions will kind of pause for a second, and I like to cast those ults as quickly as I can. We're going to be heavily relying on Joker to do damage here. Black Adam will probably do a decent amount. He has an AoE on his ultimate. It's kind of a straight line AoE, so it doesn't hit everyone, but still pretty nice damage that you'll be able to see from him here. And the thing about Joker, as you know, is his damage will ramp as the fight goes on. So really important to keep him alive and try to get as many ults as possible. Flash might actually be a good candidate for using with your Joker as well, because again, the more of those ults you're able to cast, the more of his abilities you're able to cycle, the better, because it's just going to continue to ramp that damage more and more. I wouldn't expect anything in the 40, 50 million or more range with this team. I'm definitely not going to hit it with my roster. So just keep that in mind, but definitely a setup that, with a higher investment Joker, if you're able to get him into, low blue stars or something like that with a free-to-play roster, you should be able to see pretty decent work here. I'm curious what the damage meters are going to show. So you'll see Murder Machine is in his bubble right now, and he should come out of that fairly soon. So now he's stunned, and then the battle's over with. Let's take a look at the damage meters. We did about 20 million. That's not too bad. And you can see that Joker did a significant chunk of that. Obviously, Black Adam is able to do a decent amount as well. And we were able to keep everybody alive throughout the battle. So pretty solid results there from a free-to-play perspective. Now let's take a look at my Superman family team. This one's really fun. I really have a good time playing this one. We're going to throw our Superman and Supergirl up front, Krypto, Superboy, and Flash. Now, I've traditionally thrown Supergirl over to the left-hand side. Typically, you're going to have everyone kind of focus on this slot here, the first slot. That's kind of like your main tank slot typically. Let's go ahead and run this one. And I'll throw this one on auto and 1x because I typically like to have as much control as possible here. You have to be able to manually control Crypto for him to be worth using at all. He's actually, I'm getting really annoyed with him in Meta Brawl, and I'm probably going to drop him down a tier ranking because of his performance there. I don't know why the devs want his ult to not go off immediately, but it basically makes the team not unusable. At my level, it's not helping at all. I've figured out from talking to a whale that I've worked with a decent amount that if you throw in a second healer for your 5th, you can probably keep your roster alive a little bit longer, and it allows Crypto to actually ult. But otherwise, he typically gets shut down, and then I end up losing the match. Here, it's a little bit different. Now, I am trying to supercharge Crypto. I'm trying to get Crypto to ult a few times so that I can get to that max Superman family energy, or get the max Krypton energy, so that Supergirl's ult is going to go off at the highest level as many times as possible. There are several ways you can play this team. You can try to, get Crypto to ult as many times as possible to start out with, which will ramp up the damage. You can try to get your Superboy to ult as many times as possible, which is going to ramp up Supergirl's damage pretty quickly as well. I think you need, if you have his unique legacy item, you want to ult 4 or 5 times to get the maximum over there for him. But we should be at a point now where we're just going to ult everyone as soon as they're available, and then anytime we get Flash's ult ready, we're just going to immediately give it over to Supergirl. And you can see that she's doing approximately 18 to 20 million per ult, so pretty significant amount of damage that she can do, and you just got to basically keep just doing this over and over again. And I've got an alt account that just got Supergirl. She's just now shown up on the server. I only have, I think, a 2 blue Superman. I'm really curious to test that team out once I have Supergirl and Superboy. I'm hoping to get a couple copies of each of them on that team, but I'm not really spending too much money over there. Maybe a few dollars here, a few dollars there on the best possible anvil packs that you can get. So those accidentally, that's one downside to this team, is that Flash typically will automatically target our Superboy anytime you just let auto do it, or if you click on him without targeting anyone. So you got to watch out for that. But yeah, I'm curious what that team is going to be capable of at really low stars. I'm not I don't have my hopes up for what it can do, but I think it'll be nice to see what, if you only spend, say $20, $25, $30 a month on the game, like what you're able to accomplish with a Superman family, because it seems to be that it's kind of a well-food team, but I do think you're going to be able to get something out of the team if you don't really spend a lot, just by investing force and maybe making sure that you spend your unique legacy, your magic eyes on unique legacies for that team. So be on the lookout for some updated guides, not necessarily guides, but like follow-ups on Superman family's viability at lower stars. I think we're going to be able to cast one last Supergirl ult here, so let's go ahead and drop that. Oh, did it take? There we go. Boom. All right, 257. Let's see what that did for us. Definitely got a high score, and that put us in first place. I don't think that's going to be sustainable. There are a couple of people who have not done their runs yet, but you can see Supergirl does a majority of the damage there with her AoE. Superman obviously putting in some decent work. One thing that we've noticed recently, I'm not sure what's going on, but it's very strange that Superboy would be able to do almost as much damage as Superman, considering that my Superman is 1 red star and Superboy is only 3 purple. But quite interesting dynamic there. I wonder what happens if you take Superman out and just throw like a Constantine in, or a Joker if you have him, and see what you're able to do there. We'll go ahead and wrap the Murder Machine Phase 2 video here. Hopefully you stayed to the end so that you could see that fun Superman family run that we did. This is really one of my favorite bosses in the game. Really enjoy just being able to see those big numbers. It's really fun if you have some AoE, and I think just a really well developed combat cycle boss, just with those kind of like multiple phases where if you're paying attention, and I probably could pay more attention myself, try to time some of those ults to make sure they're going off whenever he's down. But in general, I'm really happy with my progress in my account and what I'm able to do with Murder Machine. Let me know in the comments below what team you're using against Murder Machine, what's best for you. Obviously, I can't hit every single team comp when I'm doing these videos unless they last for an hour or two. But I'm curious what has been successful for you so far. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel. You'll get notified anytime I release new DC Dark Legion videos in the future, and I hope to see you in the next video.